So hello, my name's Rob and this is Cattle Rabbit Scale Model Studio, and in this video we are going to be taking a look at the miniatures for the beautiful new Warhammer Quest Darkwater. Now these miniatures are absolutely stunning, varying from really simple to really complicated miniatures. If you are a big Nurgle fan here or just one-off painters pieces, there's going to be a lot for you to enjoy here. However, I am just going to lay on a little tiny trigger warning in that all these are push fit. So while I don't really mind push fit, they do come with a certain set of problems, which I've spent a lot of time with this box. I'm going to try and do my best to kind of talk you through where I counted stuff, and we'll take it from there. I'll also show you all the miniatures I did get painted. I got a fair few done. I've been quite quiet recently. That's because I've been working on this lovely box set, but I will show you all of them at the end. This video will also just focus on the miniatures. If you want to see what else is in the box, there'll be another video with all the extra stuff coming out probably soon. If not, it isn't now. I'll link it in the pinned comment below, but let's just get started. So beginning with our hero sprue, we've got this 1.5 kind of sprue here. We've got Edmark Valoran, which is a knight, Bren Talis, the renegade saint, Inarius Sion, the lovely water wizard with the lovely flowing dress, isn't wearing any shoes, Drolf Ironhead, which is our dwarf, Kelphenor, the forest prince. He's the only miniature I haven't really looked at just yet, as he's probably the most complicated out of all of the heroes in the box set. Drasha Vaughn, which is the half man half beast, which is a really cool miniature. It's actually the first one I painted. And then we have Jacobus Vine, again not wearing any shoes, which I don't know how I feel about, and his little familiar Whisper, I believe it's called, the little dog leaf thing. All really lovely detail. There are going to be obviously ones that you prefer more than others. Like, I'm a big fan of the dwarf. None of these heroes are more than 4 or 5 pieces, I think, apart from Kelphenor, the forest prince, which is obviously he's on a bit of a bigger base as well. He is maybe 6 or 7 pieces. All go together pretty easily. Moving on to our big bad. Now this is our kind of like boss sprue, if you will. You've got Gelgus Pust here, which is an absolutely revolting name. You've got your 2 wizards on here as well. Gelgus goes together really easily in 2 really big chunky halves. He stands incredibly tall. Now if you look on screen right now, I'm showing you against a wolf priest. He towers over everything. Once you put his head on, he's kind of got this wicker halo and these big like antlers coming out of his head. He's also on a really big chunky 50mm. He's a fantastic big bad in my opinion. Much like Radikar from Curse City, he is very cool. You can see that the pin I'm pointing to there is actually broken, so I did have to kind of use my plastic glue. So don't throw your plastic glue out the window just yet, as you will need it maybe for some of these, which is a little bit of a shame. It's a very long pin to have on a miniature. Belga, the Cyst Witch, which is a disgusting name, also comes together in 2 chunky parts. Out of this sprue, this is the one I haven't touched yet, purely because there is it's going to need a bit of a sub-assembly. You know, you've got these grub bits that kind of hang out of it, lots of hands in the way, and then you've got Shaman Foulhoof, I believe the names. Listen, I'm trying my best with these names. I'm rubbish with remembering this stuff. I painted him up and I will show you at the end of the video. A very cool sprue. I will say there are a fair few revision stamps on this one sprue, so this obviously caused a few problems. But Gelgus, I can see being a real big painter's piece. Lots of gold demon entries. I think you're going to see this guy. Now, I got a bit excited and a bit carried away, so I did already unclip one of the miniatures here, which was Melgus. I do have the book in front of me. Molgoth the Cleaver. It's the name I fail to remember. Nice kind of Nurgle knight stuff. He's the one with the gross giant arm. But you've also got these 3 Blight Templars, which I think are my favourite from this box set. They're Nurgle, but there's a lot of scope to do things with them. They're very clean. Like, their armour panels are very rounded. They're not overly detailed. I know sometimes a lot of people have that gripe with Games Workshop, that they are just, you know, they over detail things. These are great. They've got a bit of chainmail and there's a lot you can do with them. and I think we're going to see a lot of people do a lot with them in things like Gold Demon and stuff like that. Here you can see my take on Molgoth. A really, really cool miniature. I love his big gross arm, but I did have a problem with him in that the sprue, and I'll show you in a minute, was incredibly warped. Now, I did have to separate the head. It's part of the arm, and I'll show you a little bit more when we go through the instructions later in the video. But he's got this really cool axe. I like the kind of drooped pose with his axe down. The arm, he's got this big kind of like gross arm. It's really what you want from Nurgle. But you can see that this arm here, I had to kind of just make an incision and cut it away from the arm piece to kind of get, because I couldn't get the head to sit at all, because this piece was actually ever so slightly warped. Not the end of the world, but it is something to be aware. And I think this is one of my main gripes with push fit miniatures, is they do come with their own set of problems. And if your sprue is ever so slightly warped, because they're designed to go together quite snugly, it can create gaps and can be quite difficult. You can see here, this is the Cankerborn sprue. I mean, look how warped that is. Again, I have painted one of these up. I painted up the big guy with the axe, which I really, really enjoyed. Very much reminiscent of the Kasagi Night Guard from Curse City. There's only 2 of them. You know, I did also have a piece loose in the box, so do just check, as there are some very thin contact points on these guys. They're like these big kind of, you know, they tower over, you know, Molgoth, which is like, you know, a slightly bigger Nurgle Night guy. But these are like not like plague bearers, but they've got like 3 heads. They're all growing out, and the detail on these are one of the more detailed miniatures in this box set. So it's like a good step up. Like if this is your first box set, I would start to tackle these maybe towards the end of, you know, the box. But the detail on them is horrendous, and you get these really cool objective targetings on well. This sword and this big smiling Nurgle head, I think, is probably my favourite. Detail is fantastic, but what makes these quite cool is they didn't come out of humans. This is a plague bearer that's come out of the earth, so they've all got like bits of rock and that hanging out of them, which I really, really like. I've actually read some of the lore on these guys, and they're pretty interesting. I like what they're doing with the Nurgle stuff from this box. It's very cool, and it's going to fit into any Nurgle themed army really, really well, because I think they are getting Age of Sigmar rules as well. So, you know, look out for that if you're getting Curse City, Darkwater, Jesus Christ. Very, very cool. I like the Cankerborn. I like the name Cankerborn. It's kind of fun. The more you say it, though, it doesn't sound like an actual word. Then moving on to our kind of chaff, if you will. It's 2 identical sprues. This is our Pox Wretches and our Pestigors. Again, not much to write home about here. One side is Pestigors, one side is the Pox Wretches, which is going to be like the rank and file. That's what you're going to be starting off fighting. You also got your Maya Kelpies, which is these gross little, they look like skinned deer things with antlers coming out of like a swamp. They're really, really cool. You do end up with a few duplicates. The Pox Wretches and the Pestigors get a couple of options. It's either like, I think one gets a head option and you can change the weapon. One might get a different shield. One might get, you know, you get 16 Pox Wretches, I believe, and I think it's 8 Pestigors. So it's literally one or the other, and you'll end up with some cool stuff left over for kit bashes, things like shields and weapons. So I know they're doing another Pestigor kit. Might be an idea to keep them to one side if you're looking to invest a bit more in the Nurgle stuff, which I would probably consider. But it's nice, you've got some really simple looking shields with a little bit of iconography on. If you're doing Nurgle, doing some Marauders or something, or like cultists, you're going to have some bits left over, which is going to be, you know, really, really cool. One thing I did think was quite fun, I've never noticed these before, you've got these little kind of like nubs, so you can actually snap the sprue in half, and it's actually designed to be snap, as opposed to it used to be one flat sprue with like a little notch taken out of it. So I thought that was quite nice. Now moving on to the instructions. It's a thin book, I'm not going to lie. It is purely just instructions. The rule book and all the other stuff I'll show in the unboxing of the other stuff video. The reason why I wanted to do it this way, so I could have to spend a little bit more time on each, rather than just having like a 30-40 minute video, which I just don't have the equipment or the voice to do. As you can see, it shows you everything that you should get in your box. It shows you all your bases, your quantities. I like stuff like this because somewhere this is going to be someone's very first box of miniatures. So I like that they have this, you know, kind of what you should get. It's even got a little handy sizing guide in here. Again, I pointed these out in instructions before, but I love stuff like this because if you're new to the hobby, this is going to tell you what size your bases are, you know, whereas like myself now, I look and I go, that's a 40, that's a 32, that's a 28, that's a 25. Not everyone kind of has that. So I like stuff like that. So we start off with our knight. Again, you can see here, not many parts to it. I did notice after I had finished painting him that his actual sword and scabbard that goes on the back was slightly warped. So something to be very conscious about. If your sprues are really overly bent, I would probably make a point of sending an email to Games Workshop and pointing that out, because push fit really does demand that the sprues are, you know, in good condition to line up. You've got Talis, and Inara, I can't remember her name. The wizard go together really, really easily. Your dwarf, nice and simple. There's only about 4 parts to him. Your Maya Kelpies, 4 of them just push onto a base, and the other one you glue half of an antler on. As you can see here, this is Kelfanor. I'm just going to call him Kevin. The horsey guy. Again, goes together in 2 halves, and then you start to put stuff around him. It's really cleverly done, but there is a lot of parts to him, so he's one of the more advanced heroes in this box set. Drasher Vaughn, which was actually the first guy I painted. Absolutely love the aesthetic on this guy. He's got that big claw thing that he hits himself with. Don't know why, just, you know, every man needs a hobby, I suppose. But really, really cool looking. Lots of fur and stuff like that. I like it. He was a lot of fun to do, and I actually started, you know, this box set with him. And then you've got Jacobus Vine, and then his Whisper familiar thing. Jacobus, I will say, I made without sub-assemblies, and he was a bit difficult to paint. So if you can, I would probably maybe paint the inside of the cape first, maybe like a dark colour, put it all together, and then just paint him, because there were some really tough to reach spots with a brush on this guy. And then as we move down to Gelgus, as you can see down here, you just pop a leg on, you pop the 2 halves on. I actually broke that big pin off, and I just glued the seam lines and then pushed him together, and then his head just pushes on. I painted him all as one complete piece. There was no sub-assemblies needed there for him, which was, you know, quite nice. You also get odd little bits of skulls and that do push in to some of the little pegs that you have on the bases. Quite nice. The Cankerborn, again, really easy to kind of assemble. They go together in about 3 parts, and what that does is actually hides a lot of the seam lines, which was quite nice. I actually finished the guy with the axe, and then you get the guy with the sword. Very, very similar. You'll see what I mean here about Belga now, in that you kind of put the 2 halves together, but you need to put these arms on. You start off with the kind of like the broth plate that goes on, and then you've got to start attaching some of the arms. Now this could make painting really difficult, but because he needs to go together in 2 halves and with gap filling, I think this is going to be one of those models where it's very much a suck it and see kind of thing. I will update you as I work with them and I work through this box. You can see here with Molgoth, this is the part that gave me trouble because it was slightly warped. The head just wouldn't sit on the neck. I had about a 2-3 mil gap, which in, you know, miniature terms is quite horrendous. But he just goes together, you know, pretty much back and front, and then the arm is kind of like one part, and then the back goes on. It's really easy to do. Same again with the Blight Templars. Really, really easy to do. Kind of, they vary degree with, you might need to put a leg on. Then the face, like the front breastplate kind of goes on, as you can see here. You could probably leave the breastplate off if you wanted to spend a bit of time doing like detail. I think that's going to be a big focal point on these guys. But aside from that, there really isn't too much to them. They've got, again, really lovely clean paneling. Big fan. Shaman Foulhoof, again, really, really easy to go together. It's 2 halves, and then the head kind of goes on, and then his staff. And then you move down to the Pestigors. And you'll see what I mean here. there's not much to them, but they do get like a weapon choice, you know, which is, you know, build one, then the other, and you'll have one spare of each for kit bashing. Same again, one or the other. This guy gets a little selection of shields, one or the other. You know, the other one, he either gets a hoe or a fork, one or the other. It's kind of what you expect from like chaff and rank and file from a set like this. You know, there's really not much to them. Then, you know, your pox wretches, which are, you know, again, the majority of what you're going to be fighting in the early stages. One of them gets a choice of heads and arms, and then everything is a choice of either arms or I think shields with these guys. They're really, really basic. There's not much to them. And yeah, just nice little miniatures. Very cool. I can see a lot of people adding these into Nurgle armies, and one thing I do hope is that you see a standalone release for Pox Wretches, because I think that's going to be really cool seeing them, you know, trudge along, especially if you're doing Rotbringers, you know, your Blight Kings and your Blight Lords and stuff like that. So that is Darkwater and the instructions. A few things to watch out for. Just be aware of sprues at bent. One thing I do really like about this kit is it's very beginner friendly, all the way down to as soon as you open it up, you'll see that the heroes are on this lovely kind of like off-white grey sear sprue, and then all of your kind of big bad guys are on like the normal generic grey plastic. So if this is your first box and you just purely want these to be used as game pieces, you're going to be able to identify what's what on the tabletop, you know, fairly easily. It's a shame that they didn't do, I don't know, green for the Nurgle stuff, maybe brown for the Pestigors and stuff like that. But here's everything I got painted. As you can see, fantastic miniatures, real lots of fun to work with. I've really thoroughly enjoyed working on these miniatures. Big props to Games Workshop for sending me out this copy so I can show it off to you guys, you know, early. Just really lovely miniatures to work with, and for push fit, it's not so bad. I've had worse. Just take your time with them. I don't think, you know, rushing them. Take a little bit of time and you're going to have some real fantastic miniatures. But look, that's it for me in this video. Do check out the other video if you're interested in what else is in the box, as we flip over to all the other books and stuff like that. But that's it for me in this one. I'll leave links below to other videos and things like that, but I'll see you all next time. God bless and take care.